Greetings and salutations! My name's Ryan, the official host of Askreddit Tells, and today we're going to be looking at some of the top stories from r/pro-revenge. Just kidding, r/NuclearRevenge. Before we do though, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to stay up to date on all the latest videos. Always have a backup. Hi all, first time poster on this sub and relatively new to Reddit on the whole, so apologies in advance for any screw-ups on my part. This happened over a decade ago now. I would have been 15 or so at the time. I was in my sophomore year of high school and this all takes place in my general science class for the year. Things start off quite well in that class with a nice teacher who was passionate about her topic. Unfortunately, for one reason or another, a good 6 weeks later, classes were shuffled and we ended up with a new teacher. Our new teacher was an older guy, certainly less passionate and kind of dull, but otherwise harmless. To provide a little background, I was certainly a troubled student in high school. And troubled is putting it lightly. I was a great student providing the teacher wasn't disrespectful and was actually interested in what they were teaching. There was nothing worse for me than a grumpy, bored, and disrespectful teacher. Now this second gentleman was certainly bored and maybe a tad grumpy sometimes, but I wouldn't say he was necessarily disrespectful. He wasn't a good teacher, but he wasn't terrible either. He didn't ignite my passion for the subject by any means, but he was adequate. Then, for the second time that year, things got shuffled around on us and we were on our third teacher. This time a brand new teacher at our school, a recent immigrant from the UK. We'll call her Mrs. Snow. She was middle-aged with reddish hair and a scowl so cold she could extinguish the sun. Mrs. Snow got into a routine quickly. She made it very clear she would tolerate no misbehavior from any form, and included within the category of misbehavior was interruption. And this meant any kind. I observed several students, even well-behaved ones, sent directly to the dean's office, a dean being someone who was essentially in charge of your year group, with no warning or prior offense for having the sheer gall to sneeze while she spoke. And it didn't matter how much you tried to cover it up. A friend of mine was unwell one day and doing his best to make it through his classes. Unfortunately for him, he had quite a dry cough, and hell hath no fury like Mrs. Snow. Poor bastard was jettisoned before the class even had the chance to be seated. And of course, I should go without saying that it was not on her good books. She was rude, unreasonably hostile, and clearly bored to tears by her subject. I don't recall how many lessons I saw to completion, but I certainly became intimately familiar with the dean's office that year. My favorite story to tell are the days when she was in a bad mood, as if she wasn't horrible enough already. I remember more than once she kicked out the entire class. God knows she spent the rest of the lesson doing, but I remember the poor receptionist in the dean's office. Her eyes practically bulged right out of her head as she saw a Congo line of 30-something students making their way to the office, all requiring to be written up by her and seen by all the dean. I can't imagine she was too fond of Mrs. Snow either, but the dean came to the wonderfully well thought out conclusion that students were clearly the problem, not the teacher. Now one day during class, I was seated near the front of the class right next to the computer Mrs. Snow was using to deliver her wonderfully monotone lecture on God only knows what bollocks. I happened to notice a small red pen drive sticking out of the front of the machine. While she wasn't looking and most of the class was distracted, I bent down pretending to grab something from my backpack, which was on the floor below my stool, but quietly reached over and pulled the drive from the computer and stuffed it into my backpack before anyone could notice. I don't know why I did it, just being a dick I guess. I figured it's just a pen drive, she can get a new one. Later that day, I plugged the drive into one of the PCs in our library to browse the contents. Various things related to her class were scattered throughout, but then something in particular caught my eye. Her immigration documents. I took a short peek and discovered her visa was due to expire in only a couple months, and that she had a new folder in which she was assembling her documentation for her next application. Oh shit, I thought. This flash drive was hot property. If she found out I had this, I'd be in serious trouble. The obvious solution of quietly returning the drive never occurred to me. At first, I removed the red sleeve from the drive, hoping it would be unrecognizable. Even then, I was still nervous, so between classes one day, I threw it on the roof of one of the buildings. And not a moment too soon, she'd found out, and someone had dobbed me in. I don't think I've ever been sent to the deans that fast in my entire school life. I was grilled, kinda like those CIA, FBI interrogations you see on TV. I didn't crack. Denied all knowledge and responsibility. They conducted a search on my backpack and found nothing. Just as well I'd tossed it. It was incredibly well known to the dean at that point, and I could tell she was more than ready to believe I'd done it. But she couldn't prove it. No one could prove it. It was all he said, she said, so I was let go. I continued having classes with Mrs. Snow. She was incredibly hostile toward the class after that, but especially me. More than once during this time, I got sent to the deans for absolutely no reason whatsoever. The referral slip she sent me with always claimed some utter BS that never actually happened, and the deans would gobble it up eagerly. Until one day, we had a reliever. And the next day, and the day after that, the reliever became our new permanent teacher for the remaining 2 months or so of the year. There was never any explanation as to why. Rumors began to spread, and eventually I learned the proper truth. The copy of her immigration documents on that pen drive were the master copy. She had no backups, hard copies, or duplicates. NZ's immigration system is ridiculously pedantic in that you need to resubmit all of the evidence from previous visas you've been granted again when you apply for a new one. She no longer had any of it. She was missing crucial documentation to retain her visa status, and as such, her visa was declined and she left or was removed from the country. I had no reason to suspect she wouldn't have backups. Usually, you'd use a pen drive as a backup, and have a master copy on a computer somewhere. This was in the days before cloud storage was a thing, and pen drives were quite small in capacity and not particularly reliable at that. I remember having a few die on me during those years. Besides, what if you lost it? Anybody could poke through your crucial documents. It just seemed so unlikely that it would have been the case, and it's what I had assumed when I tossed the thing. But I was wrong, and she was never seen again. And that's the story of how I accidentally and coincidentally got one of the worst teachers ever not only out of my school, but removed from my entire country. Remember kids, always, always, always have a backup. Edit. Hello all, to clarify/expand upon a few points. 1. A few people have pulled me up on my Reddit account being several years old, despite me saying I'm quite new. I registered it quite a long time ago. I don't remember why, but I haven't actively used Reddit in any way until maybe a month or two ago. And this is probably the first topic I've created. 2. To clarify, I was just being a little shit and stealing a flash drive. I had no knowledge of what was on it until later. I was also quite severely mentally ill in high school, and was quite some time ago. It wasn't as understood nor tolerated as it is now. I didn't know why I was feeling the ways I was. I didn't know why I was acting it. It was a turbulent and horrible few years for me. When I saw the documents on that drive, my first thought was, I shouldn't have this and I cannot be caught with it. I had no way of knowing she had no backup copy, and perhaps assumed having other copies of something as important as that would be common sense. As no point was my intention to have her deported. It was more than just a small thing that, due to a number of circumstances, many of which were beyond my control, snowballed completely out of control and led to that. 3. I have considerable regret that my actions may have caused her deportation, particularly more so as I've grown older. She was a horrible human being, but she didn't deserve that. It's something I wish never happened. 4. I don't think a single person, staff or student alike, missed her. I seem to recall some seniors throwing a party over it. I remember one of my teachers that year was asked about it by another student. She kept quite tight-lipped about the whole thing, but she struggled to hide her smile. 5. Writing could have been a bit better, I know, but I typed this out while I was bored at work, so kept leaving and coming back, and didn't really have time to have my full attention on it. P.S. Thanks for the gold. Wholesome malicious compliance. My daughter argued over half a donut. She ended up with no donut. This is all in fun, but it was nice to win for once. Last night, I bought a package of donuts for my family. There's 5 of us to share. This morning, there was half a donut, along with several whole donuts left, from my daughter taking a half and leaving the other. I took the half since nobody had eaten it, and had a wonderful snack. A little while later, my daughter comes in upset that someone had eaten her half a donut. She's 16. I don't know, she gets upset by a lot of things. I said I ate it, and she got mad and said that it was hers. I was saving it, etc. I explained that if you take half a donut and leave the other half in the family/community pack, that half is free game. If you want the other half, set it aside. My wife took my daughter's side. My younger 2 agreed with me. We ended by agreeing that if someone leaves half a donut in the pack, no one should take it except the person that left it there. Exact wording. Fast forward a couple hours and I'm standing in the kitchen and see exactly half of the donuts are gone, which gives me an idea. I wash my hands, take out every donut, cut them in half, and fill the pack with the newly halved treats, along with a note. That note is, "Some men just want to watch the world burn," since I know you guys probably aren't going to see the image. My daughter came into the kitchen and started saying, "Ha ha, very funny," and reached for a donut. I jokingly smacked her hand away and said, "Sorry, kid, those are my donuts. Those are the rules." Her eyes went wide. She was speechless. My wife thought it was hilarious, and I said I win. I let my daughter have her donut anyway. And that concludes today's r/NuclearRevenge. Did you like it? Maybe check out some of her other stuff and even subscribe. As always, my name's Ryan from Askreddit Tells, and I look forward to seeing you guys in tomorrow's video.